Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics is up next, and we're going to follow Brandon with John Pollock from Post Wrestling.
Delivering on the returns, increasing our margins.
Ratings go down the toilet if I'm not here.
All I do is simply put the math in my favor.
We agree that Brandon and John do good work.
The reason is simple wrestling economics.
I've been told the Netflix numbers. I've been told the metrics a little bit, probably 5 different times. I still don't get it.
There were respectable wrestling journalists who needed answers.
Thank you very much, members of the media. I hope you all go to hell.
How about we pop a number right here, right now?
Whole part of the show, man.
Here we are for another edition of Pollock and Thurston, a joint presentation of Post Wrestling and WrestleNomics. I can confirm there have been no bids nor hostile bids for any of our respective outlets. How are you today, Brandon?
I'm good. We have not discussed strategic alternatives, but we will always pursue any opportunities appropriately.
Yes, we're not promising any efficiencies nor any strategic alliances nor non-strategic alliances. So, some people would probably accuse us of being non-strategic, but I will.
This is not Endeavor 2.0.
It's not, but there's a great branding opportunities. And yes, everyone, Mark Shapiro's on the docket today. We're going to be getting to his comments at what is really sometimes the WrestleMania of conferences, the UBS conference. I feel this is one that has elicited some great quotes over the years.
Has it? What other memorable UBS conference moments have there been?
I'd have to go back 12 months to our recap of last year's big UBS conference. They landed Ted Sarandos this week. I mean, that's
everybody goes to these things. This is always, all the big CEOs are usually there.
Is this what we should just be doing? Should we just be doing like speaking sessions and just inviting all these people to just come and wax poetic and just have like 5 questions to give and they can just talk for a half hour. We move on. Fireside chats with John Pollock and Brandon Thurston.
If your audience was not wrestling fans, but was major shareholders, people who have power in financial institutions, analysts, yes.
Who would be your lineup? Your 3 first invites that you would send to the Post Wrestling WrestleNomics SpeakCon?
People who we would invite, or people who we would invite and would ignore our invites?
The latter, yes. You would send invites.
We would send invites to everybody. Mark Shapiro, Nick Khan, Tony Khan, if they could be in the same room.
All the cons.
They couldn't though. Maybe even the people over at 14th and I, if they're actually interested in this subject material. The people over at Triller, if they have the finances to get to our conference. The list goes on.
Okay. I think we'd have to theme these out. I mean, we could do session 1, the Wrath of Khan. Session 2 would be Why So Glum, Brad Blum. And then the final day, we would welcome who would be our big closer. I think there would be a 8% chance of a Mark Shapiro just walk on at the end. I think that would be the main event at the end of it all.
Well, don't forget, there's also always the people at ISO's Capital, including one individual who has a book to promote.
Okay. This was almost going to be the lead story this week, okay? And I'm just going to state it right now. I know a lot of people, they have figured, you know what, a George Barrios. Brandon, this is our mission in 2026. If I have learned one thing of like 20 years of booking people to do interviews, there are never easier gets than when you have a book to peddle. And this is the closest we will come to this man and his hair joining us. This will be our guest that we land at some point next year. I'm going to put it out there. George Barrios, spring of 2026. He has got a book. And if you weren't already enticed by the promise of a book by George Barrios, well, boy, this description from Skyhorse Publishing really puts it over the top. George Barrios helped transform WWE from an $800 million wrestling company into a $9.3 billion global sports and entertainment powerhouse.
Yes.
That's a big
they made a big transformative, innovative move to forego the pay-per-view business, to disrupt themselves and to get into streaming when all the other players were behaving more cautiously, perhaps more conservatively. The WWE decided to transform their business.
There were some omissions in between, like this alliance with the UFC and George Barrios' departure, but he does address his return in this description. For the son of Cuban immigrants who grew up in a cramped Queens apartment near LaGuardia Airport and nearly flunked out of high school, the climb to the corporate boardroom was anything but obvious. Barrios' story blends grit, reinvention, and bold bets. He went from a second grader forging a letter from his parents so the nuns wouldn't expel him to the highest levels of corporate leadership. As WWE's longtime strategist, he pioneered streaming years before other sports properties caught up and helped make WWE the #1 sports brand on YouTube with over 1 billion followers. When Vince McMahon abruptly fired him in 2020, Barrios co-founded Isos Capital, and 3 years later, McMahon called him back. If ever there is a sentence that requires a lot more context, it's that one. He just called him back. The Cuban kid from Queens had become indispensable. For readers of Shoe Dog, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and Good to Great, sometimes wrong but never in doubt, this offers a framework for spotting undervalued assets, hard-won lessons on navigating corporate politics, a masterclass in disrupting before being disrupted. This is both an immigrant story and a playbook for entrepreneurs and executives seeking to stay ahead of the curve. Proof that preparation, persistence, and courage can change everything. So we got the 2 P's and 1 C of George Barrios. This will be your first invite to book club next year, Brandon.
You were one of 3 people. I had to text immediately when I found out about this news.
You broke this news to me, and man, when I saw the name George Aldo Barrios on the title here, I'm ready. I'm ready for this. I cannot wait to.
I've ordered my advance press copy for review. Have you?
Amazing. No, I have not actually.
Oh, you can. I'll give you the link later.
Okay. Well, Skyhorse Publishing getting all of this done. I imagine this guy's hitting the speaking circuit with a story like this. I mean, this man, I feel like he's either like getting prepared for a career in politics, self-help, or he's launching a podcast. I think he's probably launching a podcast in conjunction with this. That'd be my guess. Can you imagine him and Michelle?
Yes. There you go. You have the co-hosts right there, the co-presidents.
Yes. Co-presidents, Michelle and George. So there you have everyone. The countdown begins now, 7 months until this transformative release of George Barrios, detailing his time, and Vince McMahon having to call him back when he needed some allies on the board of directors in those the famous holiday emails of 2022.
I look forward to any news or information you can share with us about that, although that is the subject of a current shareholders lawsuit, which both he and Vince are defendants in.
I'm sure that's covered in the book. Do you think we get any reference to Ricky the Steamboat Dragon in the book?
Or Sean Rollins?
Sean Rollins. huge wrestling fan.
Those are his favorite wrestlers.
Yes. All right. We are going to be getting to several other topics, but there was a big hostile bid this past week. Paramount and Netflix are going at it for control of Warner Brothers Discovery. Last week, Netflix made what was thought to be an unprecedented bid for the streaming and studio assets of Warner Brothers Discovery. They're like, here, take north of $78 billion, keep the cable assets. We don't want to bog this down at all. It was announced. This was a deal basically agreed upon. And then all of Hollywood lost its minds over the weekend. David Ellison decided to take the weekend off and decide on Monday, you know what? It's hostile bid time. And we're going $108 billion in. Take the debt, put the cable companies in there, put it all into a box and label it Paramount Skydance. We want the whole goddamn thing.
So Paramount wants Shitco too.
They want Shitco. Yes.
Okay. We should explain to people what we're talking
Remain Co for the more conservative reporters out there.
So all what I call all the cool stuff, and this is planned to happen regardless of any mergers or acquisitions that might happen to WBD. They've already announced months ago, and I believe that what is this going to affect next June, something like that, that they're going to separate WBD into two separate companies, which for wrestling fans, most importantly, is going to put HBO Max and TNT and TBS on opposite sides into two separate companies, where you have what I would call and David Zaslav is going to oversee what I would call the cool WB Studios and HBO company on one side.
He gets the playground. Gunther gets the garbage.
Yes, and for people watching in video, that's all this stuff here on the right with all the WB logos on it, which you see HBO Max, and some international TNT stuff, and a bunch of movie studios and TV studios and DC IP. And then on the other side, Gunnar, who is known to be the Gunnar Weidenfeld's the current CFO of WBD, who's known to be, make a lot of cuts, and if Gunnar calls you, you're effed on your project and things like that, and he would be the one overseeing TNT, TBS, and all these other cable networks, including CNN, TLC, is HGTV in here? It is, and things of that nature, including Discovery Plus. So they would have one streaming service, okay, at least. So I didn't realize that Paramount even wants Gunnar's shitco.
Yes, which they are valuing at it's worth $1 a share is what they are valuing all of those cable assets at. So they do not think too highly of.
What does that mean? So WBD stock is $29 currently. It's 1/29th of the company.
Yes. Which when these sales talks began, this stock was trading at like $12. Okay, so this has been an amazing turnaround for Warner Brothers Discovery, and David Zaslav, Mr. Zaslav, for those with his personal number, he is going to make out like a goddamn bandit at the end of this. He will be the winner, no matter who gets this company. David Zaslav will win out in the end.
Yes,
that's
he and his vest. But we have to resolve one very important question. Which is,
dun dun dun, what does this mean for AEW? I mean, certainly this is the end.
What does this mean? This is just like, I can only view wrestling through a historical lens. This is just like AOL Time Warner. Jamie Kellner is going to come back and cancel all of it.
The 12 gauge has been loaded. AEW is within sight. Jacksonville on its own will just explode, and that will be the end of AEW, right? TNA's already surpassed it. It's the number 2 company in the world, number 2 company of all time. I mean, some could argue TNA's number 1 now.
Yes, for those who cannot detect irony, that was an example of irony.
We're very bad at conveying irony and sarcasm.
Or I think sometimes listeners have a challenge with that. So the most interesting thing is what I mentioned earlier, is that you'll have AEW's streaming home, where it is simulcast, will be in perhaps a separate company, unless Paramount wins, right? But let's say Netflix acquires it. Let's say there's regulatory challenges. Donald Trump apparently is involved in this.
The Saudis are involved in the Paramount bid.
That's right, as well as
Eric Trump.
Jared
Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner
yes.
is attached here by proxy, because everyone knows Jared Kushner's extensive history among media companies and running streamers and such. So nothing untoward about Jared Kushner involvement in any of this. I mean, this is your made-for-TV movie, if there ever was one.
The main takeaway I would say here is that now we don't know we haven't seen AEW's contract with WBD. Unless there's some lawsuit someday, we probably never will. I would think there's a good chance that being simulcast on HBO Max is included in their contract, that there's some kind of promise about that in their contract, just like there's some promise, presumably, about that they're going to be broadcast on TBS and or TNT or something of that nature, some language to that effect. And their deal goes through when? It's a 3-year deal that started the beginning of this year, with a possible 1-year option at the network's behest that they could extend it to 4 years. So we're
talking end of 27 or end of 28, depending on the option year.
Right. Now I imagine, again, we don't know the contract, but I would imagine that they're probably going to be on HBO Max Dynamite and Collision through the duration of that contract. Maybe pay-per-view is a different question, where pay-per-view is now being distributed on HBO Max at a discount, separate from other carriers. Maybe that's a question. But it raises questions about what kind of renewal options they will have. If Netflix ends up getting these assets, then I think there are real questions to raise about, you're at that time, Netflix will have the opportunity. Let's say they'll be 1 year out from the expiration of the WWE Netflix deal, where Netflix has the option to extend to 10, and then has another option, I believe, to extend to 20. So, assuming WWE and Netflix stay on good terms and they have a long-term relationship, I think there are questions about, well, is Netflix, who let's say is the parent company of WBD, overseeing HBO Max at that point? In that scenario, TNT and TBS are their own separate company. They're not affected by a WWE partner in that case. There is at least that partnership that is unaffected by perhaps WWE influence. Now, if Paramount ends up getting all of this stuff, then your parent is a major partner of, not WWE, but TKO. And we just listened to Mark Shapiro yesterday talk about how he likes the idea of being on HBO, of being on TNT. I think he was especially referring to UFC in that case, because UFC is the upcoming Paramount partner.
It was very interesting, the two outlets that he selected as his example.
Those are the two homes of sports, right? I guess TBS is also airing baseball currently. But yeah, it's, again, I think we should always think about antitrust in this case. And I haven't asked Tony Khan a question in a while, but one of the questions I would want to ask him is I don't know
would he be day 4 on Speaker Con?
Yeah. There seems to be, depending on what the facts are, there seems to be some antitrust concern here that we saw explored in the MLW lawsuit a couple years ago.
Well, we will get Pam Bondi on to maybe talk about their role in all of this, to make sure that the consumer is served first, and to hear the outlines of these. So if Netflix is their push of like why they are more of a friendly bid for the marketplace is that Paramount is expected to have $6 billion in, our favorite word, efficiencies, whereas Netflix is looking for a modest $2 to $3 billion in efficiencies.
So Paramount would lay off more people, which would be in the shareholders' interest.
Yes, exactly. That's so depending on who
what does
your
that have to do
audience
with consumers?
Your consumers would the belief that this is going to create jobs is Netflix's argument here for theirs. I don't know how efficiencies equal job creation. I think they feel we'll have a net gain as compared to Paramount, which is going to just gas all of these various industries and those working underneath this. Like how you're going to uncover $6 billion in efficiencies is another question.
Am I following that you're saying Netflix is saying that our deal is better because we're going to lay off fewer people?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. In either case, maybe the strongest argument, that this is a bad deal for consumers is you'll have more streaming platforms come together, which will allow them to raise the prices of streaming services more. I don't know about that. On the other hand, you've got a lot of, these, especially the cable assets, are in decline. There is an argument about what is the market that we would be talking about here when we're talking about antitrust, just when it comes to narrowly streaming services. Are their competitors other subscription streaming services, or are they our distribution platform, YouTube, which has got more watch time than even Netflix?
But we're not in a period, though, where necessarily that YouTube is still like largely, this is like user generated content that is not going to be like, we're not getting like original series that YouTube
that sounds like the argument for why it's not the market, because they're creating premium, highly produced content with professionals, which YouTube for the most part is not. It's not that, wait a minute, we're professionals, of course, but for the most part, it's user generated content that's anybody can make.
So all that is to say, I think this is going to go through an extensive process that I think it could be years before this is finalized. There is the belief that if the Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders do not accept this bid from Paramount, which is about $30 a share, well, they could just up the price. They could just keep going higher and higher until it becomes untenable that they can turn this down. Of course, that then triggers a breakup clause with Netflix. What is Netflix's strategy here? Is this more of a maneuver that, yes, this could enhance certain things for Netflix, but this is more keeping this company out of the hands of Paramount, which has basically unlimited funds when it comes to this empire that they are continuing to expand and grow. This is going to be a massive story, probably for months, if not years, and the fallout as it eventually trickles down to an AEW, a UFC, a WWE is impossible to speculate on it at this point. Like, we could be talking by 2028 that HBO Max could be absorbed into Netflix if they end up getting control of it. Like, we don't even know what the streaming landscape will be like when all the dust settles from this.
I mean, you're seeing Disney and Hulu kind of merge into one service. At least I am on my TV. Do we understand, like, because I don't, how do these bids compare? I realize they're bidding on a different combination of assets. Netflix is only bidding on Zaslav Co., whereas Paramount is bidding on Zaslav Co. and Shit Co. So I think you're right here, right? Their bid is worth $72 billion or $82.7 billion in enterprise value, but Paramount is saying, I want all of it for let's call it $9 billion
in enterprise value. Yes. So that's including the debt, including like all value basically put into this bucket of the value of it. So if we're going to compare the $82.7 billion to $108 billion, but the difference being that, again, Paramount is going for the entirety of Warner Brothers Discovery and not just the studio and streaming spinoff. And
they're saying that because they're bidding for the legacy assets too, which they say are only worth $1 on the share, which is roughly, at least to date, 1/29th. So let's say that they're saying that that's worth, like, let's say $4 billion, right? So if I subtract 108 from 4, that's 104. So I think they're bidding a lot higher than Netflix, right?
And that's the Ellison side that is assigning that value of $1 per share. Like, there is other analysts that have pegged it closer to, like, it should be valued at like $5, for instance. Like, it does come down to, like, what is the value proposition.
So it's in the Paramount interest to say, yeah, that thing is worth very little, so that it makes our bid look much stronger than Netflix's bid.
It's like, these are declining assets that no one wants, and we're willing to take the 15-year Bobby Bonilla contract that we are going to have to pay out because it's just going to be an albatross on whoever has this deal.
So I guess, like, the bottom line is it's a matter of judgment or market analysis to determine whose bid is actually stronger. It depends on how much you value the legacy dying assets.
Not high is the general proposition, but how low have they gone? Is this rock bottom? And there's an interesting, and of course there is a whole political dynamic here, because this will, among those assets are CNN, which is still a brand within all of this that is thought to be, something that at least is viewed as something of influence that either side could acquire and do what with, like, specifically the Paramount side, if they can get control of CNN.
Yeah. And I wouldn't completely rule out all of this falling together and Comcast still ending up with some of this.
You could see Comcast just coming in the back door.
Well, I mean, there's nothing that entails that necessarily either Paramount or Netflix are going to make this work.
Like, if Netflix gets this deal, it still leaves the cable assets out there that Comcast could come in and swoop up. Like, there is no
Paramount,
there's no understanding that Discovery Global will not be sold to another entity if Paramount doesn't scoop it up. And we know Netflix is not going after those. Like, they have been pretty staunch in their belief that they do not want to get into the cable business, which it is Netflix that does have a bit of a reputation of saying one thing and doing a 180.
Yeah, and I would think it's going to behoove. So let's say WBD is going to split off with the old asset staying as its own separate publicly traded company. I think it would behoove that conglomerate, that cut off conglomerate, to merge with somebody just to keep their costs down as the revenue continues to shrink.
So there you have it. Tony Khan was asked about this after Final Battle on Friday, and I mean, I'm glad he was asked, but there was literally no answer that he can give that would have, like, there's no way of knowing how everything is going to shake out and where this is going to end up for AEW. And this is one where, yes, you can sometimes hear Tony Khan and he will give you a very surface answer. And, well, what's he really thinking? I would think it's pretty close to the same thing. Like, I don't think I would have any strong opinion if I was Tony Khan. Like, there's just, this could shake out so many different ways.
So I want to look at something in particular that he said, looking at the report on Post. I'm on the Major Events and Fan Engagement Committee of the NFL. Here he was referring to what great relationships he has with media partners because of the NFL, he added. And we work closely with all three of the bidders that have been in the mix. Okay, so he's referring to WBD, Netflix, and Paramount then. He's not saying that, there were three bidders on AEW content last time.
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. But maybe this will just start. Maybe this is going to be a boom period for AEW. Maybe they will be the crown jewel of Discovery Global when all is said and done. They dominate cable because everything else has just gone to the wayside.
They still have baseball and college basketball. College basketball. Yeah. March Madness.
What none of these streamers will have access to after Saturday is John Cena. He is going to say farewell on Peacock, the fledgling Peacock. Is that an appropriate description? Where's Peacock going to be in 10? No,
they've got 30 million subscribers.
Yeah. How many did they have a year ago?
A little less than that, I think.
Pretty much the same. They are not growing. They are not going lower. We do know that we are ticking to the end of WWE's relationship with Peacock. It was reported earlier this week that NXT, PLEs, and the WWE library, they are going to be moving on. And we'll talk a bit about more of that with the Mark Shapiro chat. But we want to talk a little bit about John Cena because he's had a very unique career when you look at all of the main event players that were the focal point of the company for any length of time. John Cena, in terms of longevity, like, he laps everybody when you consider him. His call up is in 2002, and I think most would peg him as becoming like a main event star in 2005. And he's basically in a top position for minimum 10 years, and you can extend that to 12, which is like an extraordinary period of time that this guy basically gave his entire life to WWE and has said as much. Like, when you compare to Hogan, that would be 84 to 90, 91. Then,
I actually made a graphic that we'll have to describe to people listening in audio. But so this is arbitrary. I'm sure this will be extremely controversial.
This is the Brandon Thurston effect.
So I tried to look across the timeline and think, well, who are the top guys in WWE across basically its entire history up to the present, and just to consider the longevity of Cena compared to the others, which I think is exactly what you're getting at, right? And I would say Cena's run lasts from 2005 to about 2015 or 16 is when he stops being a full-time person who's working house shows and things like that. And that's what's Bruno's run here from?
Bruno's is the comparable, but he has the big gap in between title reigns. But the first one, it's basically 63 to 71. That is the first one, and then he comes back 73 until dropping the title to Graham in 77.
And that's a total of how many years? Let's do the math here. That's from 73. The second run is from 73 to 77.
So let's call it 8, and then the second one being like 4. So, I mean, Bruno is the most comparable. I mean, very different eras in terms of, national company versus the Northeast.
That's like 12 years total for Bruno?
Let's give him 12, sure.
And Cena's about 11.
Yeah. So those would be the comparisons of, like, Bruno would be in the mix of just someone on top for that position. But I think in this climate, when you're talking about, again, it's national touring, and he was someone that was pretty much, he was definitely hampered by injuries, but had this like incredible recuperative ability to come back in record time from all of these different injuries, and was someone that also was pretty much the Band-Aid at the time when this is the post Attitude Era boom, and Austin's gone, Rock is gone, Hunter is not that guy that's going to be carrying the brand. They try with Benoit.
I didn't even include him here. Oh my God.
Well, I don't think that would be, I would certainly, like, his big year is like 2000, 2001. And then he is like just plastered over television on 03, 04. And
to this day, in fact.
Well, he's he's front and center. He's overlooking everything, center of every ad campaign. Eddie and Benoit are experiments in 2004, but 03, 04 are exceptionally low years in business. And then the turnaround begins like in earnest with Dave Bautista, and you do have him represented here. Drax was a big difference maker for them in 2005, that lead up to WrestleMania. Both him and Cena are coronated at that year's WrestleMania, but it's Batista that is leading Raw. And I would certainly say for at least the first half of that year, he's the top guy in WWE. And then they do the flip in the middle of 2005 where Cena goes to Raw, Batista goes to SmackDown. And I think that's when Cena is the clear-cut number one guy that the company basically goes with for the next decade as its figure. Whether he had the title or not, he was positioned as the number one attraction in the company.
To my memory, and I think that's what you're saying too, right, is that Batista definitely felt like the more heavily pushed star and the bigger star for the first year or so of, despite, I think, say both of them basically being coronated at the same WrestleMania in 2005, right?
Batista's the main event of that year's Mania. It's the big build-up, and he's on the A show at that time. Like, Batista is definitely the top star when both are given the titles.
And I have some data to look at when we consider, it's the post-Attitude Era. And, of course, business declines after this hottest period that the company has ever seen. And if we look at average attendance, and this is based on WWE's own disclosures, at least this chunk of time is, and where it peaks in 99 and it goes down in consecutive years in 2000. I think we're in a fiscal year right now, but you get the idea. It goes down in consecutive years, in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003. It hits a multi-year low in 2004, and then it does climb back up in average attendance in 2005 and into 2006, and it kind of stays at the same level right up through 2016. And then it does start to decline in 17, 18, 19, which are years in which we're saying this is when Cena becomes a less regular figure. And I think that coincides with a lot of other metrics going down at the same time. And you see similar trends in total attendance as well. And then the other metric I have to look at here, we got a preponderance, is the rating for Raw. I didn't dig through SmackDown, but the rating for Raw, which is coming off its huge peak in the Attitude Era. And then it does tick up a bit in 2005, 2006. So, I mean, that coincides with the rise of Batista and Cena. And I think the fact that it does decline after Cena is less of a regular star for WWE, that's to Cena's credit too, in terms of how much of a positive impact he provided.
So, I mean, when you look, I think it's generally accepted. Like John Cena, he was not Hogan, he was not Rock, he was not Austin. Do you kind of slot him like at that like next tier? Because it's certainly of this last period of time, like these last number of years, Cena's become that sort of that legend where so many of these fans grew up on John Cena. He's revered as this significant figure in company history. But throughout a lot of the 2000s, he was also the avatar for, at a time, like a lot of fan resistance, that he represented everything that the audience seemed to like groan at. And that was only kind of intensified with the early years of Roman Reigns' move on top. But he is somebody that I think like you can certainly isolate different periods where he did mean a lot, and we've definitely seen over these last couple of years what the difference has been when he's come back, when we did have house shows to look at as a barometer. but he was also like that transition point between the pay-per-view era into the WWE Network era as well. Like he was their last like main guy that they were using to draw on pay-per-view.
I think there's little question that he's the biggest star in basically all of wrestling anywhere for these years of roughly 2005 or 6 to 2015. And it's, obviously his star is not burning as bright as Austin or Hogan. And I think it's a challenge to compare him to earlier figures, but it's very complicated, I think. And Roman Reigns is a similar one, especially in his earlier years, in that you have WWE so dominant and Vince is increasingly out of touch and increasingly being challenged by the fans. And I think, the Vince-led creative was so much in open and public and audible conflict with his fans for quite some time that it just leads to all of these opportunity cost questions around, well, what if they did something different? But there's little doubt that, this was, based on the metrics that we just looked at, that this was somebody, despite being, if you were above the Mason-Dixon line, I remember joking at the time, where's Raw tonight? Is it north or south of the Mason-Dixon line? That would determine whether or not John Cena was going to be audibly booed. Just despite that, there's clearly a strong economic positive that he was for the business.
I agree. In some ways, I think he more than a lot of other talents also understood what his role was. And this was someone that, unlike other people in that top position, they were I do honestly believe like John Cena was there to serve WWE. Put me in any position, put me on all the media, put me on all the live events. We never saw any kind of public spat that he had with Vince McMahon, unlike so many other top stars. This is a guy that evaded all controversy throughout his time on top. He was never going to embarrass the company or put them in a bad PR light. He was generally controversy free. When they went PG and they wanted to appeal to more upscale sponsors, I think Cena adapted with that too and just became a blueprint for the wrestler that you would want to do business with, that got him into acting roles, commercials, and totally understood his role of not rocking the boat. And, it was a time that I'm sure that many other people in that position, he was handed some god-awful creative at times, and he did not have a reputation of someone that was going to fight that. He was just going to go out there, and sometimes it was brutal stuff that he had to go through, and got pegged with the label of company guy. But he really was a company guy, and I'm not even saying that in a disparaging way, but that is going to be a big part of his reputation. He was never going to have some big showdown with Vince McMahon. He was never going to go off on creative. He was very much distinct from your Austins or Hogans or Bretts. You were just not going to have that blemish. He did not look at Vince McMahon, I feel, as a colleague. I think he looked at this guy as his mentor, and it's very evident to this day that we'll get into the reverence that he has for Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I think doesn't he tell Austin when Austin was doing his podcast on the network that I think he was asked who his hero was, or what wrestler is he the biggest fan of, and he said Vince McMahon. I think he's the consummate company wrestler when this was a company time, during his era especially.
And it's what the company very much wanted. I think exactly. When Vince went through all the issues with Brett, when he went through the issues with Austin and the way he left, and he had issues with all of these top talents, and you heard the discussion of, does WWE, do they want to promote the brand over the guy? And John Cena was willing to put his hand up and say I will genuflect to the shield of WWE and represent that. And that is what this guy made. His brand was intrinsic with WWE and being that guy that would be one phone call away from being at the beck and call of WWE. And he brought business for the company. And you can argue that in the way that this industry is crafted, where it's very much more about the company than it is the individual, John Cena very much understood that playbook and played by it and found great success playing within that playbook.
I did an interview with like BBC a couple weeks ago. I don't know. I don't think it's come out yet. But one of the questions I was asked, this is about John Cena's retirement, and one of the questions I was asked is, what could up and coming wrestlers or current wrestlers learn from the career of John Cena?
In some ways, and I don't necessarily endorse this answer, but like everything. Like if you want to succeed in WWE, following the John Cena template is going to get you very far. Like just aspiring of that company first type of thought and not questioning creative, take what is given to you, make the best out of it. Like you listen to these interviews from John Cena and these are answers that you would absolutely expect the exact same out of Paul Levesque, who is dictating all of this and wanting soldiers that are going to carry out the mission to the best of their abilities. And everything is about, like, what was one of John Cena's lines this week? It's like, everything I do, give me $1, I'll give you back 10. That was sort of I think that's the lesson you take from John Cena. And you can be very successful following this mold. I can promise you, whatever this guy made, it was less than he was worth. I think any top guy like this is probably dramatically underpaid, but I mean, he still made a great living. He's got a great post WWE career in front of him if all things line up. I think that's sort of the lesson, that you're going to have a lot of these talents now that are coming up in NXT and Evolve. They came up watching John Cena. Now you're going to get that, like those kids that are now performers, and this is going to be their template for a lot of them. It's going to be people that WWE is the end goal, and you come here to make the company better. And this is not about yourself. It's about the company. Am I being too harsh? Is that kind of...
No, I think, I mean, that's kind of reflective of the broader world is, I mean, think about it. If you're just an executive in a company, if you want to succeed, you get on board with what that company's goals are, and you do not resist. You do the right things, and
is there any recent example that is better than CM Punk? Like, look at these last 2 years. Are you telling me CM Punk did not learn? I'm not saying directly from a John Cena, but like the CM Punk of 2011 might be this cool character to a lot of people, but that CM Punk is just, that was not compatible for what this company wants. And look at the difference in CM Punk over these past 2 years that have been extremely beneficial to him career-wise and longevity-wise. Like, the old CM Punk is not existing in this environment, and it's extended his career by several years.
Well, we all learn and grow, and it's very moving to see the transformation and the growth that Phil Brooks has gone through. As he, as John Cena said, it made him cry to see CM Punk apologize and reflect and take accountability for his actions.
Yes, not my
those
final notes here.
Quotes, right?
We are going to talk about those quotes. Just some other things I looked up today. So he ended up, you can assign basically 6 WrestleManias that Cena either headlined or was definitely in the #1 promoted match, 4 of which exceeded 1.1 million buys. 2007 with The Miz, with The Rock as the guest host. That was 2011, 2012 and 13, the 2 matches with The Rock. And then he does, in 2007, that's the match with Michaels, although Donald Trump and Vince were the big draw there. And he does just under 1 million buys with Hunter in 2006 as well. And that's kind of the end of the pay-per-view era of WrestleManias. But then he's in the main event this past year, which to date is the most financially successful WrestleMania. I guess you can pluralize it with the 2-night WrestleMania, which will exist until the next WrestleMania. And so his peak year was 2011, 202 matches, and it's not until 2018 that his schedule starts to taper off. But that is the career of John Cena. I think it's a fascinating, interesting career. And it's also like, this is a big part of the story that they tell, that he was like right on, like he was getting set in 2002. It would not have been crazy to imagine him being fired in 2002. Like, he is just, has no momentum going for him, and it's the rap character that saves him. And it really does present this interesting scenario that like many talents that were cut in that period of what they could have been. And it's kind of this fluke that saves Cena's career, and they end up getting, one of their, biggest figures that the company has ever promoted. So it's a very interesting story at a time when WWE was past the Attitude Era and into this era where revenues are so guaranteed and fixated that it's less about the individual draw, and someone that, kind of merged those eras where you were still paid on the house at your live events. You were still paid based on your position on a pay-per-view, into this current era where now you're pretty much what the number is on your contract is what you're going to see at the end of it with little fluctuation.
Which makes it a complication to negotiate a better deal for yourself to represent what your actual values of the company is. Another story, though. We have a question. How would you compare the legacy of Hiroshi Tanahashi actually retiring about the same time?
Yeah,
to
just
John
a few
Cena.
weeks apart.
Yeah.
So for Hiroshi Tanahashi, I think he is, like, I would say his peak years, like he really like ascends in like 2007. The two of them, like Tanahashi starts in New Japan, just almost around the same time Cena starting in UPW. So it is rather like parallel, the length of their careers. Tanahashi, his legacy is going to be the revival of New Japan. Like, he outlasted like the lowest of the low years for New Japan in the early 2000s. Well, throughout the 2010s, it's not until the 2011, 2012 that Tanahashi really gets them through the basement of New Japan business, and then gets a career rival in Okada in 2012. And, he's a key part of the revival of New Japan that, it's not solely on his shoulders, but I would say he was one of the leading engines for that turnaround for New Japan, when you could not have fathomed them coming out of that hole if you were to go back to 05, 06, where it just seemed like this company was at its lowest point in its entire history. I mean, as a wrestler, I think you would certainly put, Tanahashi's peak years above Cena. I think Cena was a bigger draw than Tanahashi overall, but I think New Japan was much more reliant on the star power and success of Tanahashi, whereas, with WWE, I think it went in waves with Cena, where Cena was able to prop up WWE and kind of establish it at this sort of baseline that the brand ended up becoming the feature of WWE business.
I think Tanahashi, in terms of the business data, is in a weird spot in that the improvement in things like attendance really coincide with his feud with Okada. So you're tempted to give more of the credit to Okada, or perhaps to others who are also appearing in that time. But Tanahashi is still a big star throughout that rise from, 2015 to 2019.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not the StreamYard, the Ustream era of New Japan.
Yes.
When you had to pay $30 for these events that you now get on New Japan World. He was who was the Ustream draw? I give that to Tanahashi.
Yes.
All right. Let's continue, because we have a bunch of stuff to get to. Well, let's talk a little bit about John Cena. He was he's been doing the media rounds over the past week. He did Bill Simmons, Joe Rogan, the big Tom Rinaldi interview dropped. He was on Chris Van Vliet's show the other day, and he has spoken a lot. This suit got a lot of mileage. Went for the all black look on Joe Rogan's show.
Did he wear the same suit in all interviews?
He didn't wear the suit for Rogan. And
okay.
There is I did not watch this Joe Rogan interview. I watched about 10 minutes of it. And Cena does bring up the fact that you do, in fact, have to sign a release form before you go on the Joe Rogan show. You have never seen a topic that Joe Rogan wanted to move on from quicker than the breaking kayfabe here on Joe Rogan, that you got to sign a release form, because he noted Cena is probably the first guest that has ever read the release form.
Huh.
Yes.
What was he? What did he say? What it contained?
He didn't go into what the specifics were. I imagine it is a very Joe Rogan skewed indemnification that anything you say here, I have nothing to do with it. Those are your words.
Not that it's probably not that unusual that you're asked to sign some sort of release when you appear on a big platform or a
not at all. If this was a television program, it would be not out of the ordinary. This is the most watched program in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of just the reality of these things. Something that you and I have not put our guests into. Not yet.
Not yet. I'm considering having everyone I talk to sign NDAs, though.
So,
just kidding.
Here is John Cena on the Joe Rogan Experience when the topic of Vince McMahon was broached.
Is he still involved? Is he out?
No,
Is he
he's
in?
Out.
He's out.
He's out.
He's out totally.
Yep.
It seems like he's the guy that'll be out for a little while, and then something will happen. They'll bring him back in.
No. Well, I don't know. Again, that's way. We were talking about why is your last event in this place? I'm like, man, because I don't choose the events. Like all that stuff is so far above me. But I know now he's out. In my eyes, I'd like to think that time heals everything, and I believe in forgiveness, and I also believe in looking at the body of work, but I also know there's a lot of fragile stuff going on there. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hot subject. It could get us into another Chinese Taipei incident.
I've learned to become a little bit more accountable for what I say, and just because I feel a certain way about a person doesn't exonerate them from being accountable for their actions.
Right.
And just because he did start quote unquote all this gangster shit, that doesn't mean he doesn't need to be accountable for his actions.
Right.
So let's figure out what that means, and then figure out if we can move forward and bring that back in the fold, or if it stays the way it is.
Now I rewind back to the summer of 2024, Brandon. I believe you were in the room with me, and I could have been sworn that when the topic of Vince McMahon was brought up by a reporter, that the answer was, I'm sure you could go on the internet and find out what I've said about him. So for the fact that Joe Rogan decided to bring this up, I
was
know
not the only one this week, right?
He was not the only one, but I think everyone knows what Cena was thinking.
She had the courage.
So I thought this was kind of the most balanced or kind of insightful response Cena has given. I mean, the contrast to when he was on Bill Simmons, which I imagine was taped right the day before or after this same one, where he gave a pretty kind of glazing assessment of Vince McMahon, just basically stating that he never wanted him to leave. He understands that mistakes are made, but ultimately, what is the if there's a pathway back, then let's find it out. And I think he received criticism for that comment in the sense that this is somebody that it's almost like overlooking any of the things that are alleged against Vince McMahon. And in this answer, it was given more of a thought of, this guy is not above, he's not above punishment. He's not, he should not just be instantly, these accusations, they should not be just dismissed. And I thought it was more thought put into this answer of all the ones I've heard from Cena when discussing Vince thus far, which has come up quite a bit with him whenever he does these interviews. Because, again, to our previous point, I think he is as closely linked to Vince McMahon as any of these top stars of this generation. Like, when you think of the relationship these two had, these guys were going to, AC/DC concerts together. They were, Vince showing up at an indie show for Cena's dad. These two had a very close relationship, and I think you would believe still have a very close relationship.
It's one of the most fascinating indie wrestling clips you'll ever see is Vince McMahon showing up at an indie show and being a heel. And I think getting F5, not by John Cena? Or was it by John Cena?
Yeah. He's, I can't remember the specifics,
anyway.
But this is around 08-ish that he does this, 08, 09.
Yeah. Anyway, I take it that he's someone who, many other top stars of WWE through the years, looks at Vince like a father figure. And if your father was accused of horrible things by many different women, a lot of people would probably respond like that. But these cases are still playing out.
They're, these things are above. They are above me. Suffice to say, we don't see a Vince McMahon in a lucha mask on Saturday, hiding in the balcony at the Capital One Center.
Yeah, I don't know. Will he be there this Saturday? Will Vince McMahon be in Washington D.C. in the arena for the
Probably
DC
doubtful.
takeover?
That would be my thought. Probably doubtful.
Probably not. Yeah, but further in the future, and I think while the shareholder lawsuit is on, or the Grant lawsuit is still pending.
Yeah, as we remark every so often.
He's got some litigation that he's working through.
Cena was also on the Chris Van Vliet show, and the topic of CM Punk came up. They had a very memorable program together that led up to Saudi Arabia this past June. Punk's first trip to Saudi Arabia after his 2019 tweet directed at The Miz, where he apologized to Saudi Arabia, woke up that day, was just in a bad mood. His tweet towards Biz telling him to go suck a, quote, blood-covered dick.
Blood money covered
dick. Nothing to do with the country. Had nothing to do with the country at all. He was in a bad mood.
Nothing to do with the people.
I believe his apology had nothing to do with the country.
His apology was to the whole country.
Okay. Yes. That was it. Well, here was Cena, who reflected on Punk's transformation and his apology in Saudi Arabia.
Do you have a favorite match, not just from this year, but from your entire career?
Man, that moment with Punk in Saudi that transcends wrestling, dog. That to see cultures bridged, to see genuine forgiveness. Like, I'm watching that pre-show bawling. Like, it's a pre-show.
Why did it mean so much to you?
Because, man, unfolding before our eyes is accountability and genuine forgiveness and like the bridging of cultural gaps. People who might not know a lot about each other or understand each other, getting along in harmony through this one thing that we dig, wrestling. Like, what a global conduit to peace, excitement, happiness. There's like tribute to the troops. It has a strong place in my heart, and certainly Make-A-Wish. But favorite moment, I'm just glad that I was his opponent so I could be attached to that moment. That pre-show, dude. Oh man, that is what we do. He made that trip knowing it was going to be uneasy and knowing he was going to have to be accountable, and just leaned in, man. And like, in a moment, people were like, oh, I'm heard. Yes, I'm ready to forgive. Astonishing. And then to top it all off with like, I think we've bridged a gap here. And then.
All right, there you go. That's John Cena speaking on the Saudi Arabia apology.
Did CM Punk say that it sounded like CM Punk said something really horrible and hateful and racist or something like that? Did he say something that was what did CM Punk say?
He in my interpretation, he said none of those things that you would characterize that. He stated that number one was that he referred to the blood money covered dick that the Miz could go suck. And then the other was about the Barstool Sports clip, which also emerged at this time from 2019, about basically the host insinuating this was MBS's backyard wrestling fed of just throwing money to bring all these wrestlers over, and stating he would never do one of those shows. So those were the comments Punk made, which I would imagine if we could inject CM Punk with truth serum and what his thoughts are about the government of Saudi Arabia, I imagine those opinions would differ greatly from his opinion of the people of Saudi Arabia, as I would imagine most people can differentiate these two very different things. And I would imagine that would be, I don't know, nothing that I would feel compelled to get an apology out of Phil Brooks over.
It's fascinating that it's kind of similar to Paul Levesque's response after the show, where he framed it as a moment of growth and just, an amazing moment where somebody realized the wrongs of their ways, came around, reflected, took accountability, and apologized for the wrong thing that he said. And he was critical of the Miz, but also critical of the government. That's what that tweet refers to.
That would be the question to ask any of, like, Paul Levesque, John Cena. What is it that CM Punk did that was so wrong? What was his infraction that took issue?
He insulted the government. That's
like he targeted nothing towards the people
and the
of
Miz,
Saudi Arabia
and the Miz,
who, you know, the Miz threw out his bait with that clip about changing the culture, and he chose the guy that was most likely to snap back, and he did. So I mean, it's one where listen, again, that is the element, like that is what we go back to. The lesson that you can take from a John Cena is everything can be simplified into this story. I had this tweet, I was wrong, and now I have grown from it. And that's how this is positioned. Instead of a more complicated discussion about the politics of Saudi Arabia, let's not get bogged down in the fact that we're making $50 million to go over. Let's instead talk about the change and the altruistic reasons of going to Saudi Arabia. Tours that we would do regardless of whether being paid money. I mean, that's just a byproduct of things. I mean, we would be going to Saudi Arabia 2-3 times a year, doing a Royal Rumble there, doing a WrestleMania, if we got nothing, of course, right?
I'm compelled.
We want to bring WWE to the world. We're exporting Americana. Like that, you can't put a price tag on that. Look at all the countries in the Middle East that they go to. Look at how many times they go to China every year free of charge. I mean, those are the examples. We bring wrestling to the world, regardless of political regimes. We don't let politics get in the way. We go anywhere.
The only like analogy for this is Collision in Korea, 1995, and coming up soon on Flag Day, UFC at the White House. That's what this is like.
Not 9 title fights. Get ready.
Lots of countries do lots of bad things, as Ari Emanuel has said. But it's not hypocritical to question WWE's business relationship with an authoritarian regime that has a poor human rights record. When lots of other countries have a poor human rights record, when lots of other countries aren't making deals with sports organizations or entertainment organizations, including WWE and lots of comedians. There's a big difference there. And it's done in effect, if not intent, to cover over the poor human rights record that these countries do have.
In other notes that we will go through here, let's talk a little bit, wrapping up our Cena discussion. There was a lawsuit that you uncovered from my country of origin, Canada, that is going. The time is now for a lawsuit to be filed over John Cena's theme. There was a previous agreement. Well, why don't you take us through the Cliff Notes version of this suit? What is that contention, and what the previous deal was that is causing a contentious issue now?
So there's a lawsuit filed by one Kim Schofield. This is filed in the United States in federal court in the Southern District of New York, although she is from Ontario. She is the daughter of the late Pete Schofield, who composed. It's very complicated, right? And somebody even sent me a clip since I did this story, showing that the John Cena theme is apparently a combination of 3 different samples, one of which is the Pete Schofield cover of a different song that was a hit for Vicki Lawrence. The night, I'll pull it up. He covered this song, and that song is both in the intro and it serves as sort of the backbone throughout the John Cena song. Now, to be clear, we did get a response from Kim Schofield after we published this report, and she said that this has nothing to do with the timing of John Cena's retirement. There was a settlement between WWE and the Schofield family in 2017, and what they're claiming, what Kim Schofield is claiming in this lawsuit, is that there was material information withheld from her when she made that agreement with WWE. Including that WWE made a deal apparently to use John Cena's theme song in a Toyota commercial that came out days after the agreement was finalized. This is all according to the lawsuit. So she claims that that was not explained to her, that was material information that was withheld from her, as well as sort of the more general value of what this sample was, I guess, to the song. So she claims that she was fraudulently induced into this agreement, and therefore the court should undo this agreement. And she's looking for, I believe the value is more than $150,000 in damages related to this complaint. And there are two other samples. One is a rap song. I understand that there may have been a previous lawsuit about this rap group MOP. Yes. And there's yet a third sample that's also making up his song, which unfortunately we cannot play here. Otherwise, we'd probably get hit with a copyright strike, right?
If not more. Yeah. So, I mean, this is not a case where she is trying to get him to not be able to use this theme.
She has not sent a cease and desist to WWE.
There's no cease and desist. He's not going to be coming out to silence like his heel run or basic thugonomics. He will get to use this music for one last time. But she is looking for proper compensation, arguing that WWE greatly kind of undervalued just how significant this is. The value of the theme. And she's going to have to make that argument. Like, what information were you lacking beforehand that, like, there was an agreement here that was made? Why do we have to overwrite that? And her argument sounds to be like she was not given a full picture of, like this Toyota campaign that was going to feature the song and these other, the value attached to that theme for John Cena.
Now, WWE, of course, has not responded, and it looks like they haven't even been served. Kim Schofield is representing herself. She is a pro se plaintiff here. It appears that she has written this complaint herself. She does explain in the complaint that she had an attorney who did interact with TKO, but withdrew as her attorney in April 2025. This is by her own account. So, I mean, I imagine the WWE's response will be that you made a settlement with us and you even had an attorney, your IP attorney didn't want to pursue this further. That may be WWE's response. She's suing a lot of people as defendants here, including WWE, including TKO, John Cena himself, the music producer Jake One, who is the music producer who mixed this song. There's a YouTube video you can find on YouTube where he explains, I believe he was paid something like $60,000 to mix this. There's different accounts from him about how much he made to create this theme. But he's the one who created the theme. She's also suing the original composer, Bobby Russell, I believe it is. Bobby Russell, who composed the song that, as we all remember, was a number one hit single. I did look this up. This song was a number one hit single in 1973 for Vicki Lawrence. Yes, that Vicki Lawrence. I didn't know she had a music career, but now I do. It was also re-recorded for Reba McEntire as I believe a major hit for her also. So Bobby Russell is the person who composed that song. There's a dispute between Russell and Schofield about who has the rights to this, because the Schofield recording itself was a cover of this, but it does, if you listen to it, you can find all the clips on YouTube. If you listen to it, there are horn parts in the Schofield version that are not in the Russell version. Although if you listen to the Russell version, you can hear some Cena theme influence in that as well, in my opinion.
All right. Well, that's a
fascinating lawsuit.
A really fascinating. Is there ever one that is not? But that takes us to, we do have a lot of weekly segments on this show, and what is becoming a very popular one is what's going on with Dr. Carlon Colker. And we had a hearing earlier this week in Connecticut. This is from our WrestleNomics staff. That a doctor Carlon Colker, connected to Vince McMahon, has been ordered to provide payment records to show how Vince McMahon paid for Janelle Grant's medical treatment. Judge David Bothwell had a remote hearing. It was the latest development in this prolonged pre-suit action that Grant filed more than a year ago, seeking evidence to investigate the possibility of bringing a separate lawsuit against Peak Wellness. Grant, of course, is still involved in the federal lawsuit against McMahon and WWE. And we've got a hearing that, Brandon, you were present for, not in person, but virtually. And things got a little heated because I think, like everyone, I think this judge, David Bothwell, was like, this case is moving at a snail's pace. Can we please up the speed of efficiency here?
So this is the third such remote hearing that I've observed. They're remote hearings, so they're done via, I believe it's Microsoft Teams, but a Zoom-like platform. I believe there's one in August and October, and this is now the one that has happened in December. Anyway, the dispute remains. At least one of the key disputes in this hearing was, okay, it sounds like, okay, she's gotten the medical records from Dr. Colker, but Grant's side wants the payment records. But what Colker has so far produced are records that say paid, that her treatment was paid for, but it doesn't give any evidence or any indication about who paid for them. Grant wants evidence that Vince McMahon paid for them. Colker's side admits that Vince McMahon paid for them. By the way, all this is a pre-suit action. This is not itself a civil claim. This is what's called a bill of discovery. This is litigation from Grant against Colker and his clinic to try to get evidence that she may eventually bring a claim against Colker. So this is about a 1-minute clip from the hearing itself.
When Ms. Grant was initially referred to Dr. Colker's office, McMahon said, "You've got my credit card. Put all of her bills on my credit card." And so they did. And each visit to the office didn't generate a repeat of that scenario with McMahon again saying, "Bill it to my credit card."
See, I'm not saying that that's not correct. It just seems to me beyond, it seems a bit disingenuous to say that a medical doctor's office who's got the credit card, listen, I don't watch wrestling, but I certainly am aware of who Vince McMahon is, right? And a man of his means and wealth, I think there should be a paper trail that he's paying for other people's medical bills.
So that was Judge David Bothwell at the end, and that was Colker's attorney, Frank Silvestri, at the beginning.
Yes. The judge, clearly at least a casual wrestling fan.
And he's among the casuals. That was not even among there was a slightly more heated moment in that where he's like, "What's the problem?" But so anyway, the resolution here is that the judge has ordered again for Colker's side to produce payment records. Essentially, he's skeptical that Colker does not actually have evidence of payment records showing that Vince McMahon paid. Colker says that he paid with his credit card. The judge is saying, he said, if I go to a store somewhere and I buy something with my credit card, there's going to be a record there, at least with the last 4 digits of my credit card that I paid for that, right? So basically, he wants some record of that, and they agreed that they could redact. Concerns were raised about Vince McMahon's credit card. Don't worry, Vince. If your credit card is a part of this, it will be redacted except for the last 4 digits of your credit card. That remains an issue, as well as these mysterious trips to Tijuana that supposedly Vince and Colker may have taken together for medical treatment. Colker's side is asserting physician-patient privilege over those. If they took place, he's not quite confirming that they took place. It sounds like they took place, but the situation seems to be that it was for medical treatment, and that Dr. Colker would want to claim patient-physician privilege over any of those trips.
So they have the deadline to produce the documents is expected to fall within 35 days of the order being entered, and
which he said would be this week.
So that's the latest. I imagine more hearings. I imagine more contention between these. These are the most elusive records, I think, in the history of medical practice, and it has been a very, very slow-moving non-case.
As far as where is this going? I mean, she has also asked for depositions. The court has not granted that. It could lead to. I mean, she's listed a number of claims that she says she's investigating against Colker. It seems possible that he could be added to the federal case. It seems possible that she could sue him in this state level court, or it's altogether possible that she won't sue him and that she will at least have gained some discovery that will help if the federal case where WWE and Vince are the defendants If that goes to arbitration, as people may know, in private arbitration, it's very hard or impossible to get much discovery. So this is perhaps partly a strategic litigation matter to get discovery, assuming that she ends up, if she ends up in a situation where she can't get discovery in that other legal matter.
And just our final legal cases, the shareholders lawsuit, as I understand, Mark Shapiro was deposed this week, and there's
He was
still
scheduled to be, and presumably he was.
And so a busy week for him, as we will get to in a moment. And then there's 2 remaining depositions, one of which is Nick Khan, who is at least slotted to be deposed next week.
There are at least 2 more depositions to come next week. Nick Khan, either on the 17th or the 18th. I'm not sure. It's one of those days. And then someone from RAIN, which is one of the advisor groups that helped put together this merger, are scheduled to be deposed the week after that on the 23rd.
Not Okada.
RAINE. RAIN.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And what did you learn this week about Mark Hunt's case that has been, this stems from UFC 200 when he fought Brock Lesnar, and also, like Kim Schofield, representing himself.
The highest court in the land, as everybody knows, the highest court in the land is hearing oral arguments this week. You would know more about this case itself than I do. I can tell you that, as we knew before, that Mark Hunt, so he's been through a number of appeals cases related to his original federal complaint.
This guy has not gone down easily, okay? If ever there's a man who's, his fighting style has definitely been replicated in his legal defense.
So tell me what his allegations are. He of course famously fought Brock Lesnar in 2016 at UFC 200. Lost to Brock.
This is when Brock was with WWE. He got the allowance to go do UFC 200. And at that time, they were being governed by USADA. And when a fighter came out of retirement, they were supposed to be in a several-month drug testing window, which got waived for Lesnar. The purpose of that window is that for these purposes, that a fighter who could retire in January and then a year later comes back, they can do God knows what for a year and not be subject to drug testing. So the idea is you come back, you're in a window, so we make sure that you are clean going into a fight. Well, as it would turn out, Brock Lesnar would fail several drug tests related to this fight for clomiphene, and those results did not come out until after the fight. Mark Hunt had alleged that this was a conspiracy, that Zuffa waived the testing period to get Lesnar in, and thus he was put
in WWE at the time. I think it's important to note.
Yes, it was this drug test failures that naturally people asked WWE, how is this guy testing positive when you've got a wellness policy? And that's when they disclosed that part-time performers are not subject to the wellness policy. And that was when
this will be splitting hairs, but I don't think that they disclosed that. But I think I went back at the time and found that there was in like Vince's testimony before Congress, he made clear that people were not tested, including himself. I think he didn't say that outright, but I think he was being asked whether he was doing PEDs or something to that effect. And
I will go back and check. I'm pretty sure it was like an actual comment that a WWE rep made to like the Washington Post or someone at the time of this Lesnar testing about the part-time performers. But
I do remember asking the New York State Athletic Commission if they were going to honor the suspension under, what was it, California?
That's right, because he was going to work SummerSlam right after this in Brooklyn. So anyway, it was Mark Hunt's, that was the premise, was that he was put in danger here by a guy that was, you skirted the testing window for, and he violated the very reason you have these testing windows, and that was among his complaints.
Now, to be clear,
in the lawsuit.
Brock Lesnar claims that he has never taken PEDs. He said this under oath in depositions. He even says that when it first happened, he theorized whether it was a conspiracy between WWE and UFC to ruin his career because he used them for leverage against each other to renew his deal at a better deal with WWE. Nonetheless, I get the impression from the deposition that he just thinks it was an error in the drug test. So I looked through this a couple of months ago or something, and I was surprised to see how many appeals cases Mark Hunt has been through. Anyway, he petitioned to, I guess this is what you do. So you've been through the appeals process, the appeals cases, the appeals judges, didn't make the decision that you want. So once you've been from the district court level to the appeals court level, the only court left is the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, which he did file a petition. He filed this pro se. So
yeah, he's representing himself in this whole thing.
So he did file this, and he was so the Supreme Court, I guess, accepts something like 1% of all the cases that they consider, and his case was denied. So he will not be heard before the Supreme Court.
Well, a valiant effort, regardless, from Mark Hunt. All right, let's chat a little bit about Mark Shapiro before we wrap things up. So the UBS Global Media and Communications Conference went down this week, and TKO sending out Mark Shapiro for a 35-minute chat and a bunch of topics covered as it relates to all three pillars of their combat sports ownership, from UFC to Zuffa Boxing and, of course, WWE. He had stated that the potential of Paramount getting control of Warner Brothers Discovery could potentially get UFC programming onto HBO and TNT, which have built-in sports audiences. So a lot of people focused on that. He just was so ecstatic about the fact we're out of the pay-per-view industry. No more double paywall. It's going to be great. And speaking as a Canadian, I mean, this is going to really upset everyone outside of the U.S. that still has to buy these shows. If we're going about,
it's just traditional pay-per-view or what?
It's traditional pay-per-view that we still have in Canada. Like, technically, we have Paramount Canada, which is somewhat different from Paramount Plus in the US. It is actually a separate thing. So if you're hoping to just change your VPN and you have a subscription to Paramount in Canada, it's not going to work, is based on my understanding. You will need like a US address and subscribe to the US version of Paramount Plus to get access to these pay-per-views for a monthly fee, as opposed to the $80 it currently costs.
You couldn't use a Canadian credit card to sign up for Paramount Plus in the US?
No, I think you need to sign up with like a US IP address. So it has to recognize you have to have an American address. It's not the same.
So what if you signed up with a VPN disguising yourself as a US customer, but nonetheless you used a credit card with a billing address in Canada?
If I sign up for the Canadian version of Paramount, it's a separate service. So even with a VPN,
Not that I'm suggesting anyone do this, but I just want to fully investigate this so we can raise it to the authorities.
I haven't tried this out, obviously, and I can't until January when this, but from my understanding, like, it's a separate service. It's like, it's the difference between like HBO Max and Crave. Like, it's technically totally separate. So the UFC programming is not going to show up on my Paramount Canadian service, regardless of what geographic area I might find myself in. So that means once a month, I'm going to have to drive to Buffalo because Brandon has invited me, and we're going to go to a wild.
I am a subscriber. This household is a subscriber somehow or another. Yes.
Wow. Somehow I would have to get your home address, and I wouldn't be able to do that unless I had to go to extreme means for this. So anyway, they're out of the pay-per-view business. The White House card stating it's going to be a spectacle on steroids.
Yes, he did say that.
Part-time performers and the White House card, not under any kind of drug testing jurisdiction. But they're going to be hurt financially. Don't shed a tear for them. They can't sell any tickets to this event, but we're going to rake it in when it comes to advertiser interest, branding, reach, and everyone's favorite, earned media. None of this unearned bullshit. No, it's going to be earned. Okay,
sure it will be. It's in front of the White House. It'll be. We'll be talking about it. They'll earn their media that way.
Can't wait. He stated that Zuffa Boxing is going to be built very similar to the UFC. Get ready, fighters. With roughly 200 fighters under their stable, the best will fight the best. You win, you move up in the rankings. It's going to be meritocracy at its finest. And the first card for Zuffa Boxing will take place January 23rd, which is the night before UFC 324 in Las Vegas and a Saturday night's main event. So a very big weekend for TKO. Called their partners in Saudi Arabia spectacular. And they will not take any risk. It's a management fee and eventually a roughly 50-50 ownership split that they hope to have. All stuff that he has regurgitated in the past. Praised the relationship with ESPN, which I don't know if this was like a veiled response to Freddie Prinze Jr., who Boy, did they snap back over the past week, but said that Jimmy Pitaro is going to get that direct-to-consumer platform moving fast, whether it's those that already get it authenticated through their cable provider or those paying $29.99. Either or. We saw great success with our first event, WrestlePalooza, and noted strong numbers across the board for that event. Nothing on Crown Jewel or Survivor Series.
No. How's that ESPN relationship going, you think?
Well, if so for those that don't understand the reference, Freddie Prinze Jr. had stated that through someone he knows at ESPN that they are, let's just say, not ecstatic about the ESPN deal. And I mean, it's an enormous amount that they are spending for this deal. I don't think it's ridiculous to say that this is probably not going to be an instant profit margin that ESPN is going to experience here. But I mean, WWE, in their response that they gave Fightful, like it's kind of a non-response where they just took a shot at Freddie Prinze Jr. of like, who is this guy? Number one, I don't know, a guy that you employed. But number two, they never refuted it either. So, I mean, you can take that as whatever you want it to be. But I think there's plenty of questions where they are 2 months in on this ESPN deal that got fast-tracked to September instead of launching at WrestleMania. But all we have
let me read exactly what Fightful reported. Fightful reached out to sources in WWE and ESPN with one rep from ESPN simply claiming that they haven't heard that chatter and have enjoyed working with WWE. When we spoke to sources in WWE, a higher-up said, quote, "No one in WWE upper management is aware of Freddie Prinze's role in wrestling or otherwise," end quote.
Yeah, like how does that address his comment at all? I mean, you employed him, so I mean, you tell me what his role is in wrestling.
It was a while ago, right? He was a writer with WWE.
Yeah, we're going back like 15 years at this point. So, anyway, kind of the most meaningful thing he talked about was the future of the WWE library and NXT premium live events, which are coming due on Peacock. Stated they have not gone to market yet with the NXT events, but for the library, quote, "We are working on a non-exclusive deal and think that we'll have something to announce in Q1 of 2026. Fightful has reported that it would appear to be that they're going to roll out the library similar to what they're doing on their various YouTube channels, that there will be some kind of strategy on YouTube. And the fact that this is not exclusive, they would probably retain the ability that if a streamer comes by and offers them a boatload of money, they could unload the Raw rights or whatever they want, like piecemeal fashion.
Yeah, I think W Vault, that's probably the home of the W library going forward.
I would think so.
As we've discussed before, I think probably the way to extract revenue out of the W library at this point is probably through YouTube, through advertising supported revenue, as opposed to maybe subscription video on a big streaming platform.
What do you see as the future for the NXT premium live events?
That's a good question. I had a passing thought about what's CW airing on Saturday nights. Maybe CW would be interested in it.
It's not a crazy idea of, like more wrestling content for CW as opposed to like I feel we're probably not going to see Peacock in the picture at all beyond these Saturday night's main events that they will still have. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how much of a pitch you're going to make for just the NXT shows at this point. So that remains the question about those. And finally, Brandon, you did your month-to-month comparisons or market-to-market comparisons for WWE and AEW for the month of November. Is the boom over? Tell us, just yes or no.
No. Let's see here. What did we have? We have in Q4, which is now almost over. You might have a boom flattening. We've got 6 positive comparisons where market to market it was up, 7 negative comparisons, and an average of a 0% delta in those market to market comparisons so far in Q4. This is through November, actually. So that's what we have. We have SmackDown is down year over year on average in this quarter. Raw, though, is still up. It's averaging 12,400 through November, which is up from 10,200 in the prior quarter. So Raw still looking good while SmackDown is down.
That does come with the 2 big Raws with Cena, with Boston and Madison Square Garden in November.
I think there's a fair question about whether Cena is masking some of the decline that we may see after. Now, we always have to mention when we talk about this, this is attendance, this is based on WrestleTix data, of course. This reflects people in the building, or tickets distributed more literally, but this doesn't reflect ticket prices and gates, which are undoubtedly up.
I'm sure they made Saturday night's main event this weekend affordable for the whole family to go, right?
I hope they announce a gate record.
I don't know what this gate is going to be on Saturday, but it's going to be extraordinary.
It's going to be, I think it's questionable whether it's near.
Could this be in a Tuadome level gate that they have on Saturday?
Yeah, I think so, close to that. Yeah. Maybe not a record, but not an arena record, I should be clear, but maybe just under that.
Yeah. Like it's going to be a gigantic show on Saturday. So, I think if you look like, the Boston Madison Square Garden shows, like they certainly prop things up. What the post Cena effect will be, that's going to be mitigated somewhat. Like you're right into Mania season. They have all these international shows in January as well. But we will see what the impact is. AEW, they averaged 2,800 tickets throughout Q4, topping Q1 and Q3, but was below the second quarter this year, which had All In Texas. And you had comparisons, 9 markets down this quarter, 2 were up.
Yes. Dynamite is still down on average from this is only through November 30th, but Dynamite is down on average 2,800 versus 3,100. Collision is down on average 1,800 from 2,300. I mean, some of this, of course, is, I don't want to say caused, right? Like this is a decision that they're making for reasons. Some of this is happening while they're going to residencies or they're doing back-to-back nights in the same building to minimize costs, both of those, because it's helpful to do when you're not driving the ticket revenue to help offset those costs. So doing the residencies is something you do to lower costs when your attendance isn't so hot that it justifies doing otherwise. So that bears mentioning.
Yeah, I think it's worth to note. Like if you're running a 2,500 seat arena and you're not even filling it, and why aren't you running the 8,000 seat arena? Well, there's a reason they're not running the 8,000 seat arena in the market as well. Like attendance is not a shining example for AEW. I would say that their pay-per-view business of what we can glean from what is out there, like that would seem to be their strongest business to look at. I mean, for this past full year, they basically were even with the prior year, both in excess of 10,000. The reported figures we saw in the Observer were somewhere in the neighborhood of like 140,000 buys. So if we take that number, that's a very healthy number. And it would argue that, they're going to this monthly format of pay-per-views. It may have hurt like Dynamite. I think there's no question that, Collision is seen as like a secondary show very clearly, but their pay-per-view business has kind of maintained throughout, wherever attendance is, wherever television audiences is, and where attendance is.
Yes.
All right. And the final notes here, we will just go through some ratings notes. Last week's Raw, December the 1st, for the second week in a row, did not rank globally. But last week we talked about how the number 10 program globally was at 4 million views. This week, the number 10 program was at 4.6 million views. So everything has just leveled up with all 5 seasons of Stranger Things and the Sean Combs P. Diddy documentary series. It's also cracked the top 10. So
which
what?
We have to disclose who produced that. Who produced the Sean Combs series?
This is a 50 Cent production.
This is a 50 Cent project. Yes,
that's right. Have you caught up on it yet?
No, but I've been informed that
the Southern District of New York is represented in this.
I'm sure they are, but I've been informed that 50 Cent is an adversary of Sean Combs. Is that right? There
is conflict there. Correct.
Yes.
Okay. It's anyway. We won't get into the the reckoning, but it's number 2. It's not enough to knock off Stranger Things, which is crazy to me that all 5 of these seasons are still like being watched to this degree, but it tells you the phenomenon of Stranger Things.
So this means that Raw's viewership on Netflix is down.
No, it does not necessarily mean that, because we don't know what its number was, but they were never going to be hitting 4.6 million views if they had the biggest show that they could promote in this current climate. So, I mean, we really don't know. It ranked 9th in the US. It was top 10 in 9 countries, although it didn't rank in Canada and it didn't rank in the UK. So, I mean, let's not call for the sky being the sky falling, but yes, they were out of the top 10. And it's probably going to be the case all month, because you're going to get another batch of Stranger Things episodes at the end of the month. And like, we will see when this kind of tapers off. But yeah, the run of Raw being a consistent top 10 finisher, it's at least on pause.
So again, the minimum to get in the top 10 here was this week. The most recent week that they reported is 4.6 million global views. And I just had it on the screen. The highest viewership that they've done, of course, is the premiere, which did 5.9. Everything else that they've ever done for Raw on Netflix is less than 4.6 million global views. No other episode would have ranked in this situation except for the premiere.
Then,
so this tells us basically nothing about how Raw is trending on Netflix.
No. Without a number, like, they could be doing on the highest end and we still wouldn't know it. SmackDown on Friday did 1,063,000 viewers, which was down 7%, and a 0.24 in the demo, which was down from a 2.8. Lowest number since Halloween night, which did go against the World Series. It ranked in 1 country in the top 10 on Netflix. The number 1, the most underserved country in WWE, bar none this year, that I've learned from these Netflix charts, Bolivia. Okay? Bolivia. I swear to God that Mondays and Fridays are a national holiday in this country for WWE programming. Bolivia will outlast every other nation when it comes to WWE loyalty. They wanted to find out who's going to the finals to face John Cena in that tournament on Friday night. Loyal Bolivians. And then Collision this past Saturday, which went against NXT Deadline and the UFC prelims, 267,000 viewers and a 0.03 in the demo. Terrible demo audience. This is, I don't know. Collision has just imploded.
Yeah, this is among their lowest, right? On this in the last year. Yeah, 0.03 is the floor for them.
Yeah, and they're going to have so many preemptions this month. I mean, this weekend show is the show from Wales that's going to air at 4:30 in the afternoon. So it's out of its time slot, but it's avoiding the Cena retirement. So there's good and bad to that. And then they're being bounced around all over the place in December. So you're going to have to track down Collision.
Yes.
All right. That brings us to an end. Did we cover everything, Brandon?
I think so. I think this is... No, we haven't. We have not covered everything. I think this is the longest Pollock and Thurston ever at this point.
It's definitely the longest of all time. And I was going to suggest a guest. We don't have time for guests on this show, okay? This is what you get, folks. It's you and me.
We do have a kicker, though. As every great news program has to end with a lighthearted, really nice story, and we do have. I want to zoom in here.
So I forgot about this one. Yes, bring us up to date.
We have exclusive information here. That's not been reported by anyone.
This is what you get when you stick around to the end of the show.
We have exclusive information about what happened the night of AEW All In Texas. We do have some information from the Arlington Police Department by way of public records requests, thanks to the Texas Public Information Act, which I'm a big fan of. And we do know about disturbances that happened before the event, leading up to or maybe during the event actually. But we do have this note from 11:50 on the day of AEW All In Texas. There was an investigation in Lot B. The parking manager requested that the Arlington Police Department they requested assistance in reference to a cat stuck in the engine compartment of a vehicle. Bike officer Matt Boak heroically rescued the feline and turned over to patrol to transport to the shelter.
A remarkable story. I mean, I didn't think there could be any more satisfactory end to All in Texas than the coronation of Hangman Page. I was wrong.
Yes, there was also apparently a belligerent person who basically tried to steal some candy bar and tried to kiss an employee, and he was ejected by the police as well.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Scumbags welcome, clearly, at pro wrestling events.
After being ejected, the suspect threw the purchased items on the ground and entered a rideshare vehicle. I just wanted to mention that because I'm sure
I want all wrestling shows to go to Texas and we be privy to every happening that occurs at a live event, from cats being rescued to sexual harassers and rideshare programs. Brandon, fantastic work as always, uncovering these things. If I don't see headlines on all the sites crediting Brandon, cat rescued at AEW All In Texas.
The cat item that is for irrigation.
That absolutely okay. If just you put the image of a kitten attached to these stories.
Sign it for your blue check. Look for maybe an AI generated image of a kitten. In fact, just do an AI generated image of this exact scene where a bike officer is rescuing a feline from under an engine compartment of a vehicle, and no link. I do want text credit though.
Okay, we're gonna end with a question. Jake from the Windy City. Do you see UFC Fight Pass soon going in the same direction as WWE Network and eventually will cease to exist? Fight Pass is a little bit different than WWE Network, whereas, I mean, first of all,
is there like original content, like live prelim fights or something still on there? Okay.
There's still, like for me, internationally, like the early prelims, like Fight Pass is still the way to watch. And they have so many partner agreements with various combat sports entities out there. Their library is still up there. Like they're still putting content up on the network as opposed to just licensing the WWE Network out in 2021. And pretty much it was just reserved for the pay-per-views and the library. They weren't creating new content for it. They weren't making agreements with other companies. But like, from my understanding, like Fight Pass, like it has like a loyal number of subscribers that I don't know what the expenses are to, like, obviously they're putting a lot more into it, but it seems, I think it's just going to stay in this. Like they have shown an interest in making all these agreements with various combat sports promotions out there to put on the service. And I think they're going to just keep chugging along. And if there's interest to license it, I'm sure they'd entertain that, but I don't think that interest is going to come. I don't see, your Peacocks or a Paramount Plus being interested in operating a streaming service strictly dedicated to fight content. I'm
surprised there's not more demand for Pancrase from the Pancrase library.
You would think that there is an overlap between Smoky Mountain Wrestling and Pancrase, that they could put all of this together. And
that's right. That's all under the same house now.
Yeah. When are we getting that Smoky Mountain Wrestling YouTube channel? That's the question.
Yes.
Still remains out there in the ether. All right, everyone. We have gone exceptionally long. We hope you enjoyed this expanded, supersized edition of Pollock and Thurston. We will be back next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be off on Christmas Eve. I'm going to give the preempted notice right there. But we will have a new show next week to cover all of the latest news, all of the happenings in the world. If you are so inclined, go check out patreon.com/WrestleNomics, the great work of Brandon Thurston, at your fingertips on a daily basis, whether it is market-to-market comparisons, television viewership, animal rescue initiatives taking place at AEW events. All of this can be found, as well as the definitive source for all things shareholder lawsuit related. Can all be found. Patreon.com/WrestleNomics.
Yes. And Patreon.com/PostWrestling, where you can, what's coming up this week.
We have a big show coming up on Thursday, everyone. I'm going to be sitting down with friend of the show, David Bixenspan.
Oh,
and we are reviewing Video Killed the Radio Star, the documentary, the 2.5-hour documentary on Bubba the Love Sponge.
This may be my only exposure to this film.
Well, exposure is a word that probably creeps up a lot in this documentary. And why does it go 2.5 hours? We'll discuss that. And are there comparisons to be made between Bubba the Love Sponge and Donald Trump? And will he spend 45 minutes of the documentary trying to create that comparison? Tune in on Thursday, postwrestlingcafe.com, where you will hear myself and David Bixenspan breaking down this documentary, which, based on my Google searches, we might be the only outlet anywhere, regardless of wrestling, non-wrestling, that has done a review of this thing. Outside of the Tampa Bay outlet that went to the screening, I haven't found any reviews of this documentary. So we may have
review copies, or did you guys actually buy this?
We did get a screener copy. Okay. Full disclosure right there. There was a screener provided to us. I am not going to insinuate that I contributed to this, but we will go through this entire documentary. So that is coming up on Thursday. Back tonight with Wei Ting after Winter is Coming, as AEW is in Atlanta. All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll speak with you next Wednesday, same time, same place.